This was the hardest one that I've had to do in 2 years. In all of the specials that you and I have put out to the public, this took the most thinking.
We also had follow-up questions from clients who are eagerly awaiting the ability in Canada to purchase from Miles Franklin in Canadian dollars. Can you give us an update on the timeline from when they should be able to look forward to that?
Right, and so we have a partnership in Canada with a primary Royal Canadian Mint distributor, and the website that they have helped us construct is done. In fact, later on this afternoon, I will be having a meeting and we will be running through the website. We hope to launch it as soon as tomorrow, maybe Thursday. So I will come back to you. Maybe we can issue a special announcement to your listeners with the web address, how to log on and whatnot. So I will say this, by our next Tuesday meeting, it will be operational. I am hoping to get it operational by tomorrow. I appreciate everyone's patience. This has been something that it's long overdue, but we are working with a partner in Canada who's really done all the heavy lifting for us. And much like our own website, which we hoped to have been done months ago, we ran into problems with the back end and had to redo the whole back end, which delayed the launch of our website into the first quarter of this year. So, problems happen in business, and but we've made our way through it, and it looks like we're about ready to go live as soon as tomorrow.
Also, in the face of all of these constraints from sovereign mints, the British Mint, the Austrian Mint, you mentioned the U.S. Mint that you didn't mention, but they've been not producing. We're all waiting for 2022 products to come out, et cetera. What have you got for us for a weekly special if all these sovereign mints are not putting out product?
This was the hardest one that I've had to do in 2 years. In all of the specials that you and I have put out to the public, this took the most thinking, and actually it didn't take much thinking at all once I looked at what was in stock and ready to go, but it was difficult because it's getting harder. So we have 45,000 brand new silver buffalo rounds on the floor in stock, ready to be shipped immediately. And we're going to do those at $2.99 over the price of silver as a special price. That should be as good as anywhere in North America. They're brand new. They're fantastic. And, for some people out there who don't know, it's worth mentioning, the Buffalo round looks just like the American Buffalo gold coin. Almost identical. The exception is it's not a legal tender coin. A lot of people think the Buffalo silver round was made by the U.S. Mint. It is not. The U.S. Mint makes the silver eagle. That's it. Well, they make other coins too, like the 5-ounce America the Beautiful and commemoratives, whatnot. But in terms of a 1-ounce coin, it's the silver eagle. The Buffalo round is made by private refineries, 3 or 4 of them from around the country. They all make the same one. And these are brand new, high quality, fantastic. What's the difference between a Buffalo round and a Krugerrand or a Philharmonic or a Britannia? It's kind of like, what's the difference between RC and Coca-Cola? Well, one is name brand and one is generic. In the end, they both drink the same. This will be the least expensive way to buy silver in a 1-ounce form that you can find. They are recognized industry-wide. They're lovely coins. In fact, if you didn't know any better, you would think they're legal tender coins until you flipped it over and looked for the dollar sign, which wouldn't be there. So in every other way, they look like a legal tender coin. They just don't have a face value and are not issued by a government sovereign mint, but a handful of refiners throughout North America that all make the same Buffalo design. They're very, very nice.
It's another fascinating interview. I'll put a link to it in the description of this video. We interviewed Dr. Edwin Vieira, among other things, as a constitutional attorney. He's also an expert on sound money and the origins of silver as the basis for the U.S. dollar in the U.S., etc. He wrote the book called The Pieces of Eight, and he talked to us about in the early colonial and new American times, you would bring silver that you owned to the government mint where it would be validated and refined and so on, and then they could mint it into standard because it was basically a part of the standard weights and measures. So it was about honesty and truth and consistency and trustworthiness of the source. It's just fascinating that who does the minting has always been a big deal, but the role of our money in relationship to our people being able to save for their future has always circled around silver for the people's money ever since, before the U.S. as well. But it's a fascinating part of our history. So the Buffalo rounds made by private mints, and it's properly called a round, not a coin. Good distinction. Anything else people need to know about those?
No, I mean, I find it ironic that when you talk about the history of money and honesty and trustworthiness and credibility, I mean, try to tie those to any of the major banks like Wells Fargo or JP Morgan or, any of the big commercial banks, and those phrases won't be used in the same sentence. Look, I think it's important for people to look at these items exactly as you said, as trustworthy, as credible, as money, as wealth. It's not an investment, it's wealth. And in a period of time where I think counterparty risk will become much more acute, at a period of time where the dollar ultimately will run into trouble, I think having sound, credible money is the way to protect yourself. And it doesn't always have to be in a government-issued coin. These are as good as anything that you can buy, and will save you a little bit of money in the end. It's a good choice. And while some people would rather own legal tender coins right now, I'm trying to offer things to people not only at a good price, but that we can ship out immediately. I have so much money out there right now, Dunnigan, it's insane, that I've paid for Britannias, for Kangaroos, for Krugerrands, for Philharmonics, for Eagles and Maples. And it's insane. I'm talking multiple seven figures that I have put out over 90 days. And it becomes a drag, and it becomes challenging. And so in terms of alternatives, I don't look at this as a poor alternative. Quite to the contrary, if I go back over the past 2 years, the one item that's been the hardest to keep in stock are the Buffalo rounds. They have a great following, and they are the best value. So I think if people are looking for those people who have been waiting for an opportunity, this is a good one, and it's a good price. And these are the lowest I've seen them priced all year. All of 2021, they were over $3 an ounce all year long. I am, as a side note, very intrigued to hear your next interview with Alistair McLeod. And, it's interesting. I got some texts yesterday saying I thought the banks wouldn't be allowed to suppress the price anymore. Doesn't mean that they weren't doing it with metal behind, shorting the price with metal that they have behind it. So maybe it was not unallocated. Maybe it actually was allocated. But I think we are entering a very unique and interesting time for metals. And whether it's the Basel III reserve requirement ratio, whether it's the idea of price controls or inflation versus interest rates, political issues. I mean, there's so many things that are happening and converging all at once. And if you take a step back from that and say, ultimately, things are going to get nuts. Things are going to get crazy. Things are going to get interesting. This is the time at these rates when the price of silver is well below half of its 1980 peak to start accumulating it as wealth. And I know people wanted to see the price really take off into the end of the year. I think 2022 is going to be a very interesting year for a lot of reasons. And so when Alistair McLeod does come back on, please ask him for me what he expects the reserve requirement ratio to do to the price here in 2022. And while some wanted it to happen Jan 1, I have a feeling that as the year rolls on, you're going to see the commercial banks have less incentive to hold down the price because it will decimate their balance sheets. So anyways, I don't mean to go off on a tangent. I just think that these are really interesting times, and it's only going to get more interesting as things start to unwind and unfold.